Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin coming out this morning saying what's happening to the aviation industry because of coronavirus is worse than what we saw during 9/11. Joining me today is Frank Holmes, president of U.S. Global Investors, also the firm behind U.S. Global Jets ETF. Frank, welcome to the show.
It's great to be back with you.
Yes,
and
remotely.
Yes, there's great concern over flying.
Well, we're going to talk about that. I know we normally never speak aviation, but I want to start with aviation, and then we'll merge and talk about gold later. But Frank, let's talk about your ETF here. Really taking a blow here, obviously, with everything that's happening. How do you see it? What are you seeing here?
It's amazing to me is that we've had this big correction, and I've had a quadrupling of assets. New money comes in every day, and it all started with when the news of Buffett increasing his exposure to Delta, and this is the time that he deploys money. So deep value investors, I was on Bloomberg last week that said there's only 3 ETFs trading at 6 times earnings: Nigeria, coal, and jets. And Buffett has been buying jets. It's a smart beta. It's an intelligent way. It recalibrates every quarter. And so I think, to me, there's something that's going on that it's hard to replace these airlines. But the U.S. government is totally aware that 2 million people have to be flying every day in America to keep this economy going. So there'll be a major backstop into getting people flying again, to get the economy ignited again.
So the ETF down 49% since about February last time I checked, but you're saying you're seeing unprecedented demand right now. Do you think we'll see more consolidation in the aviation industry because of this, Frank? Less airlines?
It's a great question. But when we look at the world, and it's a global jets ETF, and when we go outside of the U.S., there's 20 names at 1% each, and that mitigates currency volatility. But what's interesting to me is that America is only 25% of the global revenue for airlines, but 65% of profits. So where is the consolidation going to take place is where there's very thin profit margins, and that's in Europe. So I think they're much worse off than what the airline industry is here, from discounts or from Southwest or United. I think they will all survive to thrive another day.
Is that because of the bailout, like the government saying, don't worry, we will help the airlines out?
It's a combination, because they have this profit margin cushion, and you have the backstop. In Europe, it'll have to be 100% bailout, because there's not much there. They function on very thin profit margins.
Frank, let's switch topics now and talk gold. You have all those nice shiny gold bars behind you. Today is a better day than definitely what we saw on Monday, and especially on the miners front here. GDX right now up over 5%, GDXJ up over 10%. Is the panic selling over for you in gold?
Well, I hope it is, but here's the big difference between oil stocks. Oil fell dramatically, and that's a big benefit to the Jets ETF because it's a major cost to them. But gold has really not fallen that much, but the gold stocks, in fact, fell more. And gold this quarter is going to have a huge growth in revenue per share, in cash flow per share. In fact, it's going to be much greater than the S&P 500. And when we look at year-over-year numbers, the gold industry is starting to show great numbers. And we're getting free cash flow yields out of Newmont and Barrick and the royalty companies. So I think that every time there's a sell-off on the gold stocks, you want to be long them. And I think after this sort of selling takes place in the bullion, this paranoia, that gold trades higher because the G20 cartel, the finance ministers, will do everything and print as much money. And I've been estimating it's going to be between $5 and $10 trillion, not 1 or 2 for the last crisis that they had in 2008, 2009. This is a mega number, and real assets like gold are going to shine.
Well, I had mentioned this in past interviews this week that in 2008, when we had the market crash, gold didn't just have a parabolic rise. So you think history is repeating itself here, Frank?
It is when there's a scarcity for liquidity of fear, but the fear is very different. This is not like 2008 when people were leveraged 30 to 1 and 20 to 1 and 10 to 1 for houses. This is not a leverage crisis. This is a shortage of beds crisis. We have only 1 million beds in America, and so they've got to basically rethink how they're going to stop this coronavirus. They can't stop it from people getting it because there's no vaccine. So what they have to do is get everyone separate from each other, slow down the economy, slow down everything, and then allow for people that really get sick to be able to get a hospital bed.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on.
Do you think, part of the issue is that the government or, other industries, just like the aviation industry, have to be told, don't worry, you could stay home, you will still get paid? Maybe that message is not coming across to the employees yet, and people are afraid to lose their jobs, to not have cash coming in.
Yes, there's no doubt. That's a big concern for so many people. But I think that there's going to be a big backstop, like we're seeing for credit cards, for mortgage payments, for car payments. I could go on with the whole list. The IRS today came out and said you don't have to pay taxes immediately. They're giving a break. You're not going to get penalized for it. So there's lots of changes. And for shareholder meetings, they're now going to do webcasts. Before it was illegal. And so there's lots of benefits from this crisis.
I want to just get your thoughts on silver. Silver just getting crushed and destroyed, yet from everyone I'm speaking to, they can't get a hold of silver. The mints are sold out of silver. Bullion dealers are selling out of silver. The premiums are out of whack for silver. What's happening on the silver front, Frank? Any insights there?
I think it's a futures market, and the same thing happens with the gold and these short-term moves. It's really the futures market distorts the pricing, but the physical delivery will all of a sudden always win. And I think that once this settles, that physical offtake is all of a sudden you're going to see silver prices march back higher.
Frank, finally, before I let you go, on a personal note, you're probably one of the people that I know that travels the most. You're always all over the world. How has this affected you personally now that you're grounded, basically, right in San Antonio?
Yes, and I'm 65, so that number is a magic number, and I have asthma, so I have to be extra careful. I drove down from Toronto. I did not fly.
Wow.
And it was a heck of a road trip to stop off and see Elvis Presley in Memphis and the Graceland, and then go to Nassau, and then come here.
Wow.
I did it all in a weekend. So that was good for family time. But being now with my employees is most important. It's warm weather. If you go back and look at the Spanish flu, what took place there was a big part was to get people out into the sunshine, get them out into warm weather that helps kill these viruses. So I like being here, and I like being with all my employees. We've got we're back up to work virtually. I was talking to the CEO of Goldspot, and they basically are working. They're all working from home. It's a virtual corporation with all those PhDs and geoscientists. It's all functioning. So I feel good being here, and I'm happy to be involved with virtual companies.
Wow, it's a brand new world for us right now, Frank, but that's some distance, Toronto to San Antonio. So could you not get a flight? Is that why you drove?
No, I didn't want to fly. I didn't want to fly because of the concern that Canada still had all these flights coming in from Asia and from Europe. So airports are basically, a high risk zone to go to. So it was just better to get in the car and drive.
Well, stay safe, Frank. We need you. So
and I ran 10 kilometers yesterday, and today I'll go and run my other 10 kilometers. And I ran the day before, so my lungs, I could hold my breath for 30 seconds. So I feel good.
Staying optimistic during this very difficult time. Frank Holmes, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your thoughts.